What's up, everybody? Eric here with another EWE Reviews. Today we're going to be talking about Star Trek Lower Decks Season 4, Episode 2. But before we get into that, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know what you want me to review next. But yeah, Star Trek Lower Decks. We got very lucky that they gave us 2 episodes to start, and I've already reviewed the first one. Go check out that video. But now let's talk about the second episode. So the name of this first of all, this episode streamed on Paramount Plus. That's where a lot of the new Star Trek stuff come out. And the name of the episodes is I Have No Bones Yet, I Must Flee. Weird episode title, but you'll understand it once we talk about it in the spoiler section. As usual, we do spoiler free to begin with, then we move into the spoiler section. So this episode came out on September 7th, 2023. It was directed by Megan Lloyd and written by Mike McMahon. The cast includes Tawny Newsome, Jack Quaid, Noel Wells, Eugene Cordero, Don Lewis, Jerry O'Connell, Fred Tassadori, Gillian Vigman. And the episode has a runtime of 23 minutes. So for people know, I always complain about episodes being short. I wrote with animation, I think that 22 to 25 minute range, perfect. Nothing needs to be changed. Especially in comedies, you don't need to make it that much longer. So the basic plot of this episode is, and I copied this from somewhere else, I don't even remember where I got this. Mariner tries to get demoted, Rutherford tries to get promoted, and Boiler makes a big move. It is a funny episode, but you have to go with some disbelief with some stuff. So let's actually talk about what I thought was good in my spoiler-free thoughts. At first, I thought the Mariner story was going to piss me off because it goes along with some of the stuff she's done in the past. And I thought it was going to suck, but then you actually start realizing how she is as a character that maybe we didn't even think about. And it's like, oh, this is actually a really good story. I thought it was probably one of the best stories they've done in the show, if I'm being perfectly honest. So I'm excited for this was like a great Mariner episode. There is a creature in the Mariner story though. It's not what you're gonna expect, and oh my god, guys, it is one of the weirdest scenes ever, but I love it. You'll see it in the thumbnail. And I did like the Rutherford story a little bit at first, but then once you get to the ending, the payoff is just gold to it, in my opinion. And we do get some small progression in the story, in the full story arc for the season. So that was really cool to see. But yeah, guys, this episode had a lot of laughs and a lot of things where it's like, oh, okay. So let's actually talk about my one bad thing that I really thought about this episode. The Boimler story didn't work for me because it made Boimler look too dumb, and even the designers of the starship seem like idiots. So I'm going to talk more about it in the spoiler section, but yeah, that was something that I did not like too much. But yeah, nothing there. Nothing too bad. So let's actually now move on to my score. I'm giving this episode a 7 out of 10, guys, for good. There was nothing wrong with it to make it bad, but I didn't think it ever reached a version where I was like, oh, this is a great episode. I just thought it stayed in the good range. It never went down to okay or anything like that. It just stayed in good. Although the Mariner story was, I thought one of her best, I thought the Boimler story brought it down for me. So maybe even for this one, I'd say if Boimler would have had to do something else, I think I would have given this a better score than I actually did. But I definitely recommend you go watch it, especially if you're a Trekkie. And actually, I would say new Trekkies, I want to know what you guys are thinking about this, because I think new Trekkies should really be into this stuff. Even if you don't get all the Easter eggs and references, I think it's really cool to see. Alright, guys, so that's my spoiler-free section. Let's actually now move into the spoiler section. So I'm going to give you guys a warning. But those of you that are not going to join us, please go watch the episode and then come back and watch my spoiler section. I'm going to talk about everything that happens in the plot. And I actually have a lot of fun doing that because I love Star Trek, so it's fun to talk about this. But yeah, please subscribe to the channel and like this video, guys. All right, so let's give you your warning. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so we start off the episode talking about the season-long arc where we see the Romulan ship first show up, and the Romulans, I will admit, made me laugh my ass off. Just because they're all arching each other, they're all trying to act oh, I'm gonna betray this person, I'm gonna betray this person. It's God, could you guys be any more you're evil, but at the same time you just follow orders most of the time? You guys suck. And I was just having so much fun. They went over the top with the Romulans, and it was on purpose, and I really enjoyed it. Also, then destroying a Riemann body was oh, okay. So yeah, they act all sinister and stuff, and we get the ship again from the first episode. The one thing about the ship, and it does the same thing, it ends up destroying the Romulan ship. I'm not sure I'm convinced yet that it's actually killing everyone on board. I want to say it is, but I'm also wondering, does it just transport them somewhere else? I feel like they could be doing that, and that might actually ruin it for me later on, but let's hope I'm wrong. So let's now move on to what's going on in Cerritos. We start off with Shaxx and Ransom, and they're doing, and I can't believe they're doing this. If you guys remember from Star Trek: The Next Generation, there's that one scene with Dr. Troy and Dr. Crusher, where they're like stretching and stuff like that. Is she Dr. Troy? Or is she Counselor Troy? And they're doing that stretching in these weird outfits, and Shaxx and Ransom are wearing the exact same outfits. And I'm just like, you know what? Yeah, you guys nailed it. That scene just made me laugh. But we do have a problem there where Ransom, he's not trying to talk crap about Mariner, but it comes off sounding that way if you don't know the context of what he's saying. And Mariner overhears them, and she freaks out. She's like, oh, Ransom's just going to demote me, said I'm not longer going to be his problem. And she took it to mean one thing, and now that kind of like messes up the rest of her day, where she's like, oh, I'm not even going to bother with any of the stuff for the leaving the lower decks. I'm just going to be demoted again. And at first, like I said, I wasn't liking the story because it's like, oh man, she's just going to self-sabotage herself as usual. But this actually comes into play for the story, so hang on. So now we see them all moving their bunks and stuff like that. And you can tell, like, for Tendi and Boimler, it's like, oh, we're leaving this. And we have this great scene where Rutherford's like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna get promoted today. And you're just like, whoa, this guy, the ball's on him, thinking he's just gonna be able to get promoted just at will. And we'll get back to that later. But yeah, they end up moving, and this is where everyone's gonna separate to their own stories. Tendi's the one that had the least amount to do this week. So we actually go to Mariner, and she's already self-sabotaging herself. She's kind of being a dick to Ransom, but he's not really like going with it. He's just like, okay, whatever. So I really like that from Ransom. They're giving him good character development of being a good leader, so I actually really enjoyed that. And then we go to Boim. They're going into his first room, and it's by the nacelles. And this is where I would say I started to not like this story. Boimler's in there, and in my opinion, I'm like, Boimler, you're on a starship. Don't you think there would be a way for them to make it so your room doesn't suck and you don't just have all the blast coming in from the nacelles? And it's like, and then eventually you get back to this at the end, and it just made Boimler look like an idiot, and I did not like this scene at all. Just because I'm like, Boimler is he's not an idiot. He might be a coward at times, but he's not an idiot. So that scene made no sense to me. It just seemed like Boimler should know how that works, and so I was kind of disappointed about that. So now we end up going back to the Mariner story, and she ends up going to a menagerie, and it's pretty funny. I like this menagerie just because the humans are obviously like they're there to save the humans, but the menagerie is like, for the most part, it's like a zoo, and they even said like, oh, most of the things that are there are like very dangerous. And you see this thing called a Moopsie, and it does not look dangerous at all, but you can tell that the caretaker's just like, oh no, I am scared as hell of that thing. So it's really funny. So then we actually go now to the Rutherford story, and he's trying to impress Billups in order to get promoted, and he's going all out. I'm like, oh, the Cerritos ended up getting a bunch of stuff, but then Rutherford ends up getting a new rival in this guy named Livik. Or Luvic, I don't remember. I'm calling him Livik. And it's really funny watching them compete because everything Rutherford does, Livik is like one step better. Like, oh, Rutherford can make this be 0.05% better. Oh, that guy, or 0.5% better, or something like that. The other guy's gonna get 0.06 or something like that. It's like he's just one little step ahead of him. And this is like what happens most of the episode. He's like one step ahead of him. And yeah, I felt bad for Rutherford, but then when we get to the ending, it's like, okay, this all made sense. So now let's go back to Mariner, and the Moopsie got out. And then you see the caretaker, and he freaks the hell out. He's like, oh no, the Moopsie's out. And they're like, oh, well, I mean, look at this other thing. It can't be as dangerous as those creatures you have in there. And he's like, are you kidding me? It's even more dangerous than them. And it goes in there, and then you find out why the Moopsie is so dangerous. It can drink your bones. And it's just like, what? And it has like, there's these dangerous looking creatures, and he just eats their drinks their bones and kills them. And it's just like, oh crap, so they just all start running from this thing, and oh my god, it's really crazy. So now let's go back to the Cerritos and go for the next part of Boimler. He goes into his new second room, and Shaxx helps him move in. He even calls him Baby Bear, and I was like, oh, that's really cool, I love that. So this is where I'd say they make the designers of the Cerritos look dumb. So the new room is in between the two holodecks. So we see T'Ana and Shax go into one holodeck. They're gonna go mess with. They're gonna do a hologram with Robin Hood and his merry men, and they're just gonna torture the crap out of them. And you can even tell that Shax doesn't like it, but T'Ana's like really into it. And then there's another one where Freeman's giving a pretend speech, like I don't know what the hell she did, but Boimler can hear both of the rooms. And my thought is, why would you put a room in there in between them, but yet there's no soundproofing with the holodecks? I was like, this is really dumb. And I was like, you would think that all of that is soundproof because someone could be doing something very private in the holodeck. Why would you have it so anyone could hear what's going on in the holodeck? I just thought that was very dumb. I didn't like it personally. I thought that was probably another weak thing with the Boimler story. Because like, it just didn't work for me. I wish it did, but it didn't. So now we go into Mariner and Ransom have like some development. And this is when Ransom like lays in there saying like, hey, I'm trying to still be a supportive leader to you. He's like, you're the one that's self-sabotaging yourself trying to get demoted. And she's like, no, you're just gonna do it. It's like, no. He's like, everything you've been doing today is you self-sabotaging yourself because you're trying to get demoted. And then she has like that realization like, oh crap, that is what I've been doing. And it's really cool because it's like, at first I hated the story, but then even seeing her just be like, you know what? Yeah, I've been doing this to myself. Like, this really sucks. But then she even said, I did not let the Moopsie out. And Ransom was like, I believe you. And I'm like, damn it. Ransom, you're making me like you. And like, sometimes I don't like to like Ransom, but you made me like him today. And then the Moopsie ends up going into the room with them. Like, it comes in and it kills the guy. I thought the guy was made out of corn. No, he's still made out of bones, and the Moopsie killed them. And then they end up getting out of the room, but they kind of forgot that was the control room. So now the Moopsie's starting messing with panels and stuff, and they're gonna like die. So they need to like figure out how to get the Moopsie out of there. All right, so now let's go to Boimler, and now he's inside the Jeffries tubes, and he finds like a little spot. He's like, oh, I'm cool right here. And then you see Rutherford come in here, and he's like trying to do something to be able to impress Billups as well here. Backfires on him because then then Boimler says, oh yeah, Livik came by, and he like looking at the stuff. It's like Livik's still a step ahead of him. So that was another cool thing. And then we go back to Mariner on the menagerie, and they end up coming with a plan where it's like they were fighting with each other for a second, and they realized like Mariner was gonna sacrifice herself, like straight up sacrifice herself, but they figured out another plan. That thing just goes after Bones. And then Ransom's like, oh, punch me or whatever. And Mariner ends up knocking out his teeth. And they realize, well, that's Bone. That's what that thing's going to go after. And you can even see the Moopsie in the back being like, oh, I see Bone, I see Bone. So they end up making a trail for it back to its own enclosure. So that's the plan for them. But now let's get back to Rutherford's story for a second. And he's just like, he's disappointed in himself because he can't beat Livik. And this is where you find out something very crazy. And Tendi gives him an order. She's like, no, you need to like get your stuff together. Stop being like down on yourself. And this is when you find out that Rutherford's been turning down promotions for the longest time. He gets offered promotions all the time. He keeps saying no, and he's not going them because he doesn't want to be away from Tendi. And I'm just like, okay, so they're going to make them a couple at some point, right? Because at this point, it's like, oh, Rutherford's in love with Tendi. That doesn't even just seem like friendship. That seems like, oh no, he's in love with her. But then Tendi ends up telling Billups like, hey, can Rutherford get a promotion for that time that he had the idea to remove the hole? That's back in season 2 at the end of it, if I remember correctly. So it's like, oh, okay, yeah, he can get his promotion. So that was really cool. So he finally gets his promotion, and I like that story. It's like, oh, he could have been promoted at any time, but he just kept choosing not to. And then his friend just like told him, hey, just accept one of those other ones. Like they still believe in you. So that was really cool. So let's go back to Mariner, and they're able to get the Moopsie back in its pen. They did this funny thing where it's like, oh, they didn't really need to knock out all of Jack's teeth, but because they only needed like 10, but they ended up knocking all of his teeth out. I'm just like, okay, he's gonna need some work done. So they get the Moopsie back in the pen. They end up finding out the humans that they end up going to rescue are the ones that let the goddamn Moopsie out. And I'm just like, fucking humans. They end up letting the Moopsie out. So that really sucked. And they end up leaving the humans there because, yeah, they suck. They just wanted to get the menagerie for themselves to make all the profits. So that wasn't cool. So, yeah, moving on from there, you see Jack now has a new set of teeth that T'Ana made for him. And him and Mariner are now on the same page. And it seems really cool. Like, I really like the story of Mariner, like, realizing, hey, Jack's got my back. Like, this is a commanding officer that I can root for and all that. So it was really cool to see that. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, Mariner's story, one of the best stories that they've had on the show, in my opinion. So let's now go on to Rutherford. Now that he's promoted, that means he's going to leave the lower decks sleeping area. But him and Boimler end up becoming roommates, and they're getting a bigger space. And this is where I said it was seeming very stupid. They end up going to another room, and the room also had the same problem with the nacelles where the red light was coming in through. And I was just like, oh, what's going on? Rutherford just fixes it like in a second. And it's just like, Boimler should have known how to do it, and they made Boimler look like an idiot again, in my opinion, there. But yeah, this is where we end the episode. It's like, okay, well, they're at least happy. They're now roommates, they're bunkmates. It's really cool. I'm happy for them. Let's see what they do with it. I want to see where Tendi and Mariner ended up, because I don't think we've seen where they're at. Maybe we'll see that in the next episode. But yeah, guys, so far I'm liking what they're doing. I'm not sure how the season-long arc's going to work for me here, but the way they're setting things up of like, oh, they're getting promoted, they're no longer just ensigns, I'm liking that. I think Season 4 is a smart time to be able to do that, because you can't keep them ensigns forever, in my opinion, if you want us to still invest in these characters. So I really enjoyed them doing that. I can't wait to see what they do with Episode 3. So my plan going forward, I don't know what day I'm going to be putting out these. It's probably going to be Mondays, just if I'm going to be basing off of my schedule. So that's right now my plan. I didn't have one out yesterday, just because of football. So I think football is going to be a big thing. So let's see how I plan things out going forward. But yeah, guys, thank you for watching. And yeah, I'll be keeping making this just because I have fun doing this. So yeah, talk to you soon. And please put something in the comments what you thought about this episode. Tell me if you liked it or not. Was I being too harsh giving it a 7 instead of an 8? But yeah, guys, thank you for watching. And please like and subscribe to the channel. Talk to you soon.